Hi, I'm Gary Young.
And I'm Carys and
Carys and I talk about those stories in the news that are overreported and the ones that are going completely under the radar and not talked about enough.
This is Over the Top, Under the Radar.
Carys, you were away. Do you have a good time?
I was. I was in Ghana for a funeral, so I don't know if you can say you had a good time. It was for my grandfather who passed away quite a few years ago now, so we were not fresh in mourning. So the first week was lovely, saw lots of family. The funeral took place over 5 days, culminating in a big sort of public funeral for about 2,000 people. So that was good.
So what are those? What are they like? The funerals there? Is it like 5 days of eating, or 5 days of breastfeeding, or 2 days of eating? And do you know what I mean? Like, how do they
So
do it?
this is where the North-South Ghanaian divide will come in. So probably most people listening that have Ghanaian heritage will be maybe from the south of Ghana. So they might be Akan or Ga. So they have a way of doing their funerals. And we, Northern Ghanaians, have a way of doing our funerals. So if this isn't how you do funerals, just be aware that I might be from a different tribe to you. So it was a mixture of things. One of the days they had like a calabash of red paint that women had created, and you put some money into the half of the calabash and they put red paint on you. And because he was my grandfather, I got like a line on my cheek to show he was my grandfather. Some people got paint on their arms. There was a day where women prepared shea butter from shea nuts, so by hand, just like beating it, and people fried a very specific type of bean in that oil and ate it at midnight, and you couldn't have any salt or any pepper or any seasoning with it. That clearly had significance. No one explained what it was to me, but the beans had to be prepared in that way. So there were like lots of ceremonies. People had to run around the house 3 times, or the sort of compounds in the village. And the significance of that was to prove that my grandfather was dead. They were sort of going around to check he wasn't around the back. And then at one point, quite comically, one of his daughters-in-law had to be part of the running around with a dead sheep on her shoulders. And they're like, has to be a daughter-in-law. And I was like, okay. And I mean, it was a hot day. It's 37 degrees on average in the part of Ghana that we're from. This woman was struggling, man. It was long for her. So yeah, there was lots. It was a mixture of like symbolic things, ceremonies. There was some food. And then on the Saturday, like the main day, thousands of people came, and people came from other parts of Ghana to sort of pay tribute. Yeah, Ghanaians love funerals, man. We do it on a big scale, and we often don't do it the sort of funeral rites when the person has died. It can be like months or years because they're such a production and they're so expensive, and like you've got to do it right.
I'm intrigued by the idea that just in case he's not hiding somewhere, you got to like. Does that happen quite a lot?
So I don't. That might be a Northerners thing. So it's like running around the compound because often the elders might be at the back. There's a lot of stuff about proving that he's dead and like seeing his passage through into the next life. So like there was a bit where my dad had to have a bow and arrow, and there was a bit where like his death was proclaimed. So like officially he's been sleeping. Obviously he has until we did this ceremony. There was a lot happening, and then on the last day, like the big public day, we had the big funeral. I caught a very severe stomach bug. So as soon as the funeral was over, I was severely unwell to the point I had to be tested for typhoid and malaria. And so that was the second week. So less good, but I'm hair braided and it costs £5. Anyone who's got their hair braided will know that is insanely cheap. That was with me bumping up the price. How about you? What have you been up to? Talking to Diane,
Yes.
Zadine?
Well, I've been working mainly, quite boring. I was in Liverpool, did a talk in Liverpool, which is always nice. I do like Liverpool. I saw just earlier this week that Ngugi had died. Ngugi is a fantastic author, a really lovely man. I had the privilege
Oh,
of
you
meeting
knew
him.
him.
Yeah, I met him about 18 months ago at Manchester. In his presentation, lively mind, good sense of humor. Ngugi's emphasis was, yeah, I speak English, but I'm not going to write in English anymore because I'm going to write in my mother tongue, which in his case was Gikuyu. His idea, his practice was if you can't write in your own language, then, what are you doing? And there's just something really nice about that. It's that kind of Toni Morrison quote about, like, I stood at the border claimed it as a centre and asked people to come to me. It's just like, look, who says it's a marginal language? It's not marginal to me. And then he had this thing. He said, if you can control the psyche of a people, then in a sense, you don't even need a police force. And he wrote this book, Decolonizing the Mind, The Politics of Language in African Literature. And it was all about, look, we need to center ourselves in our own language and culture. If you know all the languages of the world and you don't know your mother tongue or the language of your culture, that is enslavement.
So those who don't know, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, I'm sorry, Kenyans, passed away this week, I believe, and was a Kenyan writer and author. I've only read one of his books, but I've read it many times, A Grain of Wheat. I didn't know about decolonizing the mind. So Ghana's an interesting one. The official language in Ghana is English. And that was a decision by Nkrumah and sort of the independence leaders, because we have so many different African languages that we speak, because Ghana is a country invented by colonialists. Some of my aunties came to my granddad's funeral from Burkina Faso because half my family's on the other side of a ruler line border. And like one of the things that my father feels passionately about, and I know lots of Africans do, is this, what it means then for the official language and the language of schooling and textbooks to be a colonial language, but also not people's first language. And what does it mean if the language you think in, the language that like your mum spoke to you, isn't the one that you use to like get a job or go to school? And like, how does that impact how you see your language and your culture? But also how you use English is interesting. Ghanaian English, I know this is true for lots of parts of the Commonwealth, is like, it's slightly different to British English. We have a lot of power cuts, and my dad sort of said, people say they have taken the light because they're thinking in Twi or in one of the languages that is their first language. And in that language, that is how you would say the power's gone. Well, we had a lovely message from Zrinka. Said, I love the show. Such a great concept. I have to say, I have been kicked into joining by Gary's superb and much needed summary of the character and track record of Tony Blair. Thank you. Solidarity.
Thanks, Rinka. Quite a response to the Immigrants Wipe Your Asses video. Francis wrote, oh, this is nice, Francis. Your wonderful mum cared for my dad when he was in hospital and then taught my brother maths at school. Well, you know what, Francis, is really nice. My mum died when I was 19, which I'm just going to say is quite a long time ago. So it's really lovely to hear stories about how she impacted other people.
You can find us all over social media, be it Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, or X on @over_under_pod_.
A big shout out to the people who joined us on Patreon recently: Patrick, Dorney, Karen, Alan, M, Sophia, Lara, Kim, and Catherine.
We've hit 500 Patreon supporters, of whom 454 are fully fledged paying Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. The team and I make this podcast because we believe there's an audience of people out there like us, like you, who are comfortable with unashamedly progressive perspectives and sense of humour. Because our values matter to us, we don't take random adverts. We only accept sponsorship and support from organisations whose values align with ours. So it's really your contributions that help to keep this space alive. If you enjoy the podcast and find value in what we do, please consider donating. The packages start at just £5 plus VAT a month. And if you already donate, please consider upgrading your membership. Search Over the Top, Under the Radar on Patreon and put your money where your ears are. So this week I want to talk about Joe Biden and Goodnight Bro. What about you?
I want to talk about Gaza and the Labour left. What are they up to? So let's go.
What do you know about original sin, Gary?
Original sin?
Not the biblical concept.
Okay. In which case, nothing.
So original sin is the name of a new book that came out, I think it's like a week ago, maybe a week ago in the US, now in the UK. So it's a book by two journalists, Jake Tapper from CNN and an Axios journalist called Alex Thompson, about Joe Biden's health. So have you heard about the Joe Biden health book?
Yes, some of the shenanigans. I have. I'm saving that book for when I'll be on holiday in the States in summer, and I'm gonna read it. So I just saw that there were shenanigans. I thought I'll catch up with that later.
I want to begin this by saying I absolutely bloody love this genre of book. I don't know what the genre is called if you work in publishing, write in. Like a pacey, political thriller written by a journalist that's behind the scenes on something. So I'm just going to say, absolutely love these books in general. Probably one of my favorites is Game Change, which is about the 2008 presidential race. One that, I mean, I don't know if I could read it again now, but Michael Wolff wrote Fire and Fury about the Trump administration. So, like, this is a genre of book that I support and endorse. They're pacey, they're well written, and it's basically gossip. It's 200 to 300 pages of gossip, Gary, and I bloody love it. I do think Original Sin, which is the Biden health book, How Much Was Biden's Poor Health Covered Up, which has been rocking DC and the US, has been making lots of headlines. I do think this one is a bit overblown. So love the genre of book. I, like you, will probably at some point read or listen to Original Sin. It sounds like a good book. But I think there's partly because, you know, Jake and Alex have a book to sell, and partly because of the nature of political media, I think the coverage is going a wee bit over the top. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about that I just think are missing the mark. So I think the first thing is there's a lot of like, oh my God, Joe Biden was barely compos mentis. Like, what a shock. People are saying that he couldn't come to meetings. And it's like, I mean, can I just call bullshit a little bit on the idea that anything in this book is completely shocking? It's like, you know, getting the long read that fills in the headline. Sure. But are we really going to say that we're completely shocked that from the period of 2022 to 2024, Joe Biden wasn't well and wasn't doing well? Like, I know that maybe the extent of it wasn't visible, but my mum was like forgetting people's names and like tailing off for a while. So I think there's a bit of false surprise and like false newsiness in this that I'm just not totally down with. Like, we knew my man wasn't all right. Second thing is, this is not brand new. Like, FDR, former US president who served for 3 terms before there were term limits, ran the 1944 presidential election campaign in the middle of the Second World War, lying pretty badly about his health. Like, he was dying, basically. And his team completely lied, covered it up because, you know, he was the only one who could save the world from Hitler. So similar kind of self-aggrandizing view that it sounds like the Biden inner circle had, you know, they were holding up the country from the threat of Trump. There is a reason that they lie about their health. Sick people aren't considered strong, aren't considered good leaders. So like, I'm not saying it's all right, but like, it is something that there is a template for, and there's a reason that people do it. And I think the final thing is that because when something comes up as a scandal or a problem, everyone wades in with like, well, obviously we have to change X or Y. There's a big push in this to be like, well, everyone suddenly become a doctor or an oncologist because Joe Biden has also, it turns out, recently or not recently, depending on your level of conspiracy theory, had quite a severe cancer diagnosis. So suddenly everyone's become an oncologist. Everyone is like, well, why didn't he have that prostate? He should have had that prostate test if he's, you know, and this sense of, well, you know, we need to know if people like, this isn't good. The deception isn't good. Whether you're surprised by it or not, we shouldn't be happy. But like, I think we should also still say people do have a right to medical privacy. Politicians should not be doing jobs they're not qualified for. They're not like compos mentis for. But these sort of fixes of like, oh, well, what we need to do is like make sure that everyone gets medicals, or we need to see the results of people's prostate exams. It's like, that's not the fix. Like, this is about really the hubris of the Democratic leadership, the way the Democratic Party functions, and something that is true across all political parties in many countries about the sort of cliquey nature of people that surround a political leader. I do think people have a right to medical privacy, and like, I think people are quick to jump in with a fix. I don't think it would have been a fix for this. I actually don't think it's just because you sign up to elected office, suddenly like every smear test or blood test you have has to be broadcast. So yeah, I'm really up for reading the book because I think it's going to be juicy, but I think there's some stuff that's missing the mark. And yeah, I guess like final thing is also, this is from 200 interviews with political staffers, all of whom have an axe to grind, most of whom were working on the Kamala Harris campaign and feel like, to quote the opening title of the book, Biden fucked them. So yeah, pinch of salt with this, interest in the book, but interested in what you think, you know?
I mean, first of all, I think that it's a political problem. It's not a medical problem, right? He's 82, so by that age, people generally do have prostates the size of a cantaloupe, and you know, none of this is extraordinary. Really, an 82-year-old man trailing off in his sentences. Like, I'm 56, I'm already trailing off my sentences. So the problem was political, wasn't it? It was that there was this cabal of people, none of whom had actually been elected around him, who had tied themselves to his coattails. So if he went, they went. His wife hadn't. That was a different kind of, nuptial tying. But they didn't want him to go, which is a kind of issue with American democracy where he can act like a king and think we won't notice that he's 82. But also, I find those, because I had to read a lot of those kind of books. Bob Woodward of Woodward and Bernstein, Watergate fame, he would write books like that. And they are books where they are very readable. So and so came into the room. Bush was frowning. I have at least two problems with them. One is there's a load of stuff that it's like, oh, come on. Like, there's a line in Bob Woodward where Bush has just ordered the first bombing of Iraq, and someone said, oh, there might be, yes, it's clear, but there might be children in so-and-so. And he's like, we got to go. And then Woodward, writes, Bush was thinking about the children. And it's like, dude, come on. He just started a completely illegal war, blah, blah. He's not thinking about kids. Do you know what I mean? And what, you're the voice of God now? Like, the only person who could tell you what George Bush was thinking was George Bush. And he's not going to say, actually, I really needed a dump. Or I was thinking about something I saw on Golden Girls the day before. He's going to say, I was thinking about the children. But they parlay that into like it's fact. And the other thing that I find kind of weird is that because it's politics as drama, I haven't read this book, but I've read lots of books like it. There's lots of menu stuff, and over a kind of lunch of, cornichon and, salmon, they discussed blah, blah, blah. Bush asked him about, or Obama asked him about his mum's health. So-and-so started to cry. Do you know what I mean? There's all this kind of like what they were wearing and what they were eating. And I do kind of imagine because sometimes there's that description on their way to them doing something really horrible. So it's like Bush came in tight slacks, or Bush came in with well-pressed slacks.
Maybe that's just because that's what's in all their diaries. They're just like, what's the detail? I am fascinated by it as a genre.
But can you imagine?
You're right. It's often what they eat and where they were eating.
What they eat, where they were eating, what they were wearing. Andrew Rawnsley likes to talk about particularly women's hair, stuff like that. And it is like, can you just imagine? It's like Mussolini came in wearing a tie. Do you know what I mean? Kill them all, he said. It's like the drama
spraying out of his mouth. I know, but I love it. But you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, I guess. Like that's what I mean. I think it's like you've got to be like, this is almost like a reality TV version of it. It's a zhuzhed up version of what happened. Although Game changed to one about the 2008 election. Again, I'm sure it's not exactly factual, but it is enjoyable just because A, it has all the toxic dynamics of Clinton's campaign. B, it has John Edwards, if anyone remembers him, the third candidate, his affair. That was, I was there for that. It was gossip.
I mean, the thing with Game Change is there was so much crazy going on.
So much crazy.
There was a Clinton crazy. There was Obama. Just the idea of Obama is pretty crazy. You got John Edwards and that woo-woo woman that he was cheating on his wife who had cancer, and his defense afterwards, like she was in remission. It's like, dude, stop. Just stop. And then you got Sarah Palin. And
I forgot about her and the kids and the
and then her daughter gets pregnant, and she can't tell Katie Couric what paper she reads, and it's like, oh, your country's in real trouble. Everything about this story is crazy.
Yeah, by that comparison, this Biden stuff, like, I don't think it slaps like that. Like, I think it isn't good. But if you take the book with the pinch of salt of like this genre of book is always a bit amping stuff up. Yeah, it just reads like, it doesn't read like some sort of massive conspiracy that was hushed up. It reads like the thing that we kind of all thought was happening.
Its title could be Old Man Goes On Too Long. Do you know what I mean? Which is, I speak from experience, what old men do. My under this week is the Labour left, which could be summed up really succinctly in terms of like, what are they doing? That is my basic question. What are they up to? There's a piece by John McDonnell in The Guardian, who says, unless party members, affiliated unions and MPs stand up and assert themselves, take back control of Labour, in the next period of its history, we may not only lose a government, we could also lose a party. Now, bear in mind, I like John McDonnell. I think he's class. And a lot of the people on Labour left either I admire or actually know and quite like. And it's not obvious to me what they are doing. I know each individually doing, lots of good stuff, but as a group, I think we really need them as a group to act in a coordinated, effective, strategic way. And they don't. And this comes back to, I think it was after the two-child cat thing. It was you who kind of really, really laid into the Labour left. You're like, I'm done with these people. Like, figure it out. I've come to exactly the same level of exasperation. Like, maybe they've got a plan and we just don't know it. And I'm not looking to Parliament. There's politics, there's electoralism, there's campaigning, there are various ways of doing things. So I'm not looking for a Labour Party to save me or God forbid. But there are MPs who know better in Parliament. What are they doing? What's the strategy? I'm hoping that you have one. I'm hoping that you have one because people are looking to politicians, I think, in vain for some sense of hope. Now, ultimately, I think we are gonna be the receptacles of hope. The world is gonna change if we make it change. We shouldn't be looking for Labour, left, whatever, to lead the way. But given that they're there, I would like to know what they're up to. And I would implore them that whatever they're up to do it together, to do it as a group, to do it in a way that is strategically effective. And what I fear is that because you can see Labour retreating, maybe on fuel winter payments, maybe on a two-child cap, somewhere in there, some messages getting through. That's coming from polling. I don't get a sense that it's coming from the backbenches. I know that Starmer has a huge majority, but even if they decide to abstain, they abstain together. It's not like with a two-child cap where one abstains, the other one votes against. Some of them are kind of lose the whip, some of them don't. And I've said this before, there are more important things than keeping the whip of the Labour Party, actually, like mounting the kind of defence of working people that gives people hope and doesn't have them run off to reform. And if you don't step up in this moment, you might find that you lose your job anyway. It's no point in having a whip if you ain't an MP.
Interesting, because I think I was pretty hard on them, and I've softened, but maybe we've slightly switched. Like I think you're right. We don't hear anything. I think it's hard because people like McDonnell were in party leadership not that long ago. Like they know the game in a way that maybe they didn't before Jeremy Corbyn won, right? They have the media contacts, they know lobby journalists, and McDonnell himself has been in Parliament for a very long time. It is hard to be on the left of the Labour Party right now because the leadership is so hostile to the left. They are so punitive with things like rebellions. And, the media agenda is the media agenda. Journalists want to write about what they want to write about. But even within that, I would say they're underperforming. And maybe there are these behind the scenes conversations that they're having with like Greens or Lib Dems or the Independents. But right now, it doesn't feel like there's any sort of a fight for the soul of the Labour Party. It feels like the Labour Party is now just this sort of right-wing shell, which, as you say, is sort of cravenly just following focus groups and opinion polls and guessing at what it thinks the voters it chooses to care about want. As things stand, probably Keir Starmer will be replaced by Wes Streeting. And so we'll have a situation where a leader who, I don't want to plan anyone's political career. Maybe stuff changes and maybe Keir Starmer becomes a hugely successful prime minister. But the idea that the right or the centre of the party could fail and then be replaced by another right-wing person, I think some of that has to be on the Labour left for not articulating the alternative or, building coalitions with the bits of government that aren't happy with what's going on. Like Angela Rayner, someone associated with Angela Rayner leaked a memo about what she thought should happen, which involved tax rises. I'm not like the world's biggest Angela Rayner fan, but there's someone you could peel off. So it feels a bit frustrating and, stakes are pretty high politically. So it would be a good time. But I don't know, Gary. Maybe it's just not in our nature, us lefties. Maybe we're too idealistic.
Aren't you in the Labour Party?
I am.
Can you not
I am
call
indeed.
some of your people then?
Who are my people? Who are my people? I'm not out here like
really
that.
You
The
are
Labour Party listen to. Oh wait, so I'm part of the Labour left. I'm
you
part of the
are
problem.
part of the Labour left. Show them to the promised land.
As powerful as I like to consider myself, and as right as I think that I am about many things, I'm not a Labour MP. A lot of I know members have left because they're so disgusted. If you don't have the additional power of being an MP or being a special advisor, it is harder to think what to do. And then increasingly you think, maybe I just leave.
My over is about Gaza. Now, obviously, I don't think that Gaza as an issue is overreported. What I'm interested in, and one has to be very careful here, but is the recent new consensus that what is happening in Gaza is very, very wrong. So hundreds of writers, prominent people in the culture world signed a letter calling it genocide recently. David Lammy, said Israel was being very badly behaved in its, murderous intent and the starving of people. Starmer has delivered a rebuke. There is this sense of what you're misbehaving now. And there is that book, One Day When It's Safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold everyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. That's by Omar El-Akkad. And I feel like we're at that point. There's one thing to make very clear at the beginning of this discussion, which is the response to these things can't be like, but that was my indie band. I knew it first. You're a Johnny Come Lately. And therefore, the fact that you now like the indie band means it must be shit and I don't like it. We argue these things in the hope that we'll win people over. When people say, well, what was the point in the demonstrations? Well, if there hadn't been the demonstrations, if we hadn't been out in the streets, if we hadn't been wearing the badges, if we hadn't continued, then there would be no place for these people, some of these people to go. So if people come round to your point of view, you should welcome it. You shouldn't be like, yeah, well, you took your time. Many of the people who are signatories to the culture letter, I know, have been quite vocal on Gaza before. Some of them haven't. But there is a thing about waiting until, because the thing hasn't changed, right? It's not like there's been some real development in this story that's now bad, that wasn't bad that a year and a half ago. It's always been bad. Israel has never hidden its intentions, even if it's lied about what it was doing. And so there is something about intervening at a point where, while it's welcome, there is no risk to you. It's not too late because there are more people dying, but there is something, and it also made me think Gordon Brown has been out saying Labour's got to step up on poverty and child poverty and so on. And it's like, it speaks to a similar thing, which is like, people always get bold when they don't have the power to do the things that they're bold about.
One exception is that Tony Blair, who loves to come out and be like out and proudly still terrible, which
he gotta love that.
Stay classy. I think the thing I find really confusing about this, and you're right, the stakes in Gaza are so high, so much life has been lost, so it's never too late for people to change their minds. I think what I don't understand, what was the tipping point?
It's the starving thing, I think.
Right.
Somehow the starving is different from the bombing and the assassinations, and I'm not. I think, it's not entirely obvious to me beyond that.
Which makes sense in a sense, right? Because bombing, there's bad actors on both sides, whereas starving famines are just, even though they're political, just bad. But then people have been being deprived of water and resources and food for so long. So I think it's hard if you've been paying attention to get what's happened, which is by the by in terms of your broader point. But I think that's hard and confusing. I guess the only other thing is, it's like, you're right, we can't be like political hipsters and be like, well, we've cared about Gaza, how dare you? Like, I don't think Palestinians think there's a limit on the amount of solidarity and support they need. But there is another thing also of like, it's never too late to do the right thing. And also, like, when the thing that's happening is a genocide, like, time is somewhat of the essence.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, and maybe we can put in the newsletter, but like, Google satellite images obviously update every so often. And, there's a few videos on social media of just the satellite images of what Gaza looks like now. It's decimated. So there's also a part of me that's like, so much damage has been done and like so many people have been killed. And so it actually does matter how quickly and the genocide word has been being used by very reputable organizations for quite some time now, like Amnesty, Human Rights Watch. Like, I don't want to be churlish about people's political awakenings or shifts. And also, every day really matters to people in Gaza. And I feel a way about that. That isn't relevant or important for what needs to happen in Palestine and for going forward. But I think, it can't be unsaid that the death toll has got pretty high because a lot of people have chosen to turn the other way. My under the radar, which I think is going to be an under the radar because I put it in our podcast group chat and a few people didn't know, I'm going to call it Goodnight Bro, but it's a social media trend.
It's not like Goodnight Moon, the children's.
Well, it's not dissimilar, Gary. So It's a social media trend, as far as I understand it, and I think this is pretty accurate, that started on TikTok, went viral, and then for, elder millennials like me, then spread onto other platforms like Instagram, which is obviously how I saw it because I'm not a big TikToker, although the podcast is on TikTok, everyone. As with the best sort of viral, funny content, it's a really basic concept. And I think there was the first one was someone's wife or partner filming her husband, calling up his friends, saying goodnight. And so now there's just loads and loads of viral videos that are captioned. It's a woman or someone's partner filming a man with his phone, calling his friends to say goodnight. And what happens is, in every of these videos, and they are quite funny, a man calls oh, hey bro, hey, how you doing? He's yeah, I'm good. He says and so what the guy has to do is he has to say, I'm just calling to say goodnight. And then goodnight, bro. And then generally what you have to also do is say sweet dreams and sleep tight. And so the core of the viral trend is just the sort of hilarious reactions that all of these male friends have to one of their friends calling them saying goodnight and sweet dreams and sleep tight. So you get men who are bro, you okay? What's happening? There's one guy who hangs up. He's just the fuck are you doing? Someone's you got a girlfriend, man. Why are you calling me with this shit? So and then you basically, the video is the man doing that and then him and his partner forcing the laughing fit that they have as various men just while out and get very confused about why a male friend would call them to wish them good night. So the videos are funny. We'll link them in the newsletter. There's some very good ones. I liked it. I think it's important to not just talk about the bad stuff in the world on the podcast. But I just think there's something there about masculinity that we should talk a little bit about, that it's so wild. And this, I'm sure, is not all men, as we like to say, but this idea that calling up a male friend and saying good night and sweet dreams is this crazy thing. Yeah, I mean, you're a man. I just wanted to talk to you about it,
Yeah, it's mental.
Would you say that? Would you say good night?
No.
The male friend called him good night, sleep tight,
I'd
sweet
be
dreams.
What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck is that?
That's the reaction that the videos are called.
Yeah, that's I mean, we can unpack that in a minute, but I mean, absolutely not.
It's so good.
And I mean, I'm against it. There are some things.
Okay.
There's against it. People, you do you, but don't fucking call me and say goodnight there, because
sweet dream.
Yeah.
Sleep tight.
Okay, so the first question I would have is, if a female friend called you and said goodnight, sis, would you think, oh, that's nice, or would you think, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I mean, just calling to say goodnight, I would be a bit okay, but I mean, I like eccentric people and people that march to the beat of their own drum. So I mean, things that my friends do are often, I'd be this is odd, but you may be odd. I don't know. But I wouldn't, it's not a normal regular occurrence, but I wouldn't be outraged or hang up.
I might hang up.
You'd be the friend
I
that
wouldn't be outraged, but
I would
nope, just be
I'm not dealing with this.
First of all, I'd be are you all right? That would be my first thing.
Reaction. That's a common reaction.
I'd want to make sure that, they were all right and that this wasn't some cry help. And if they said sweet dreams, I think I'd be I'm off now. And I'm going to change my number. Don't call me. What the fuck is that? And I think the next thing I would do after I put the phone down is say to my partner, Jack is weird. He just called me and said good night. And then when I said, are you all right? He said, sweet dreams. So anyway, he's not coming to dinner on Tuesday anymore.
Oh, he'd get NFI. Wow.
Well, not until I found out what was going on. I would need to know that he was okay. But once I knew he was okay, Obviously, I wouldn't change my number.
Nah,
But
that's expensive. You can just block him.
yeah, I mean,
But don't you,
it's a good way to jack people up.
is there a bigger point about male loneliness and masculinity, or am I reading too much into it? You think this is
Well,
just weird behavior?
masculinity is, a jacked up identity with lots of work to do. So there is that. We've got work to do. And loneliness is a thing. We're in a world where people are lonely. Men are not as good at talking about their feelings and all of that. I'm not sure. I think women would respond differently, but I don't know that they would respond well to that. If I think of my female friends, there'd be a bit less what the fuck. But still, like, first of all, are you all right? And then secondly, okay, bye. So maybe a more proportionate response. I don't think like it's violating my sense of like my virility. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do talk with my male friends about feelings,
Okay, that's good. That's good. Good to hear.
but not at 11:30
Mm.
in a weird like drive-by.
I'm not gonna now. I want to call you at night and be like, "Good night, sweet dreams," but I've ruined it by telling you about the meme. But yeah, okay. So Gary's against it. I'm in favor of it. Think maybe we should all be wishing each other sweet dreams. It's a nice thing to say. Want everyone to sleep well. Better world. We're all well rested. Thank you for listening to Over the Top, Under the Radar.
Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support the show, find us by searching Over the Top, Under the Radar on Patreon.
You can sign up to our newsletter at overunderpod.com and connect with us on social media at over_under_pod_.